Hello, everyone. I'm wanting to share with anybody who has lost an African gray parrot, had their parrot die. What I saw two other people sharing on YouTube also, that it really is a devastating experience. And most people that you try to talk to about it, they're sympathetic, but they really don't understand the depth of loss that happens when an African gray dies. I had my parrot for 30 years, and for about 17 of those years, it was with my husband, and the parrot's name was Moxie, and a female parrot. She laid a lot of eggs when she was younger, and she spoke in both our voices, and she was always relating to us. If you went out through a kitchen door that squeaked, she could hear that from the dining room. She'd make the same squeak. She was just engaging all the time. And when you'd come in the front door at night, or any time really, she'd let out a cheerful whistle that would go right through the house to welcome you home. Like they're with you. More than any other creature, they are with you. They're relating all the time. And they're happy doing that. Even though it's a caged bird most of the time, and it should be out in the wild, the bird is happy for some reason relating to humans. So I had one for a year 30 years ago, and there was an accident. The bird was able to escape in a strange way. It was able to escape. I won't go into that, but it flew up over the treetops and was hit by a car and killed. And I remember how excruciating that was. It was unlike any other death. It wasn't like a pet animal like a cat or a dog. It wasn't even like a human death. It was different. And a friend has just told me that for some reason, parrots seem to be able to know what's in your mind. And I think they do. They're so observing. Like they're focused on everything that's going on in a house. My parrot here, where I live, if the cat got up on the table, it would say, "Get down, Puka." Like it would act like a human. So I got a second parrot 30 years ago after the first one was killed that way. And she was fine. She was never sick a day in her life. I never considered for a moment that bird, that I would outlive Moxie. It just never crossed my mind, because they're supposed to live to be 80. And here's this bird that's never sick, always robust, always cheerful. And suddenly it stopped eating. For a couple of days I was wondering, why isn't she eating? And then I realized this is very dangerous. If a bird isn't eating, they need to eat all the time because their metabolism is so high. So I was visiting on a Gulf island here where I live, and it's a ferry ride into the city where I live, and to get to the only bird vet in this city, I called them at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they would take Moxie, and she did her best. She said right away, she said, "The bird is cool. It's too cool." And she said, and she's very thin. The breastbone was protruding too much. Just in those few days, she'd lost some weight around her breastbone. So she said sometimes when birds are this sick, if you pick them up, they'll just die. But she didn't. She lived all through that day, and they managed to get some fluids into her, and she perked up a bit by bedtime. And the vet got up at midnight to try to feed her. But the next morning, she called me and she said she's not doing very well. She's cold. And then she called me a couple of hours later, and she said, "I can tell she's on her last breath right now. She'll die in 2 or 3 minutes. So then she called me back. She said, yeah, she's gone now, and offered to do an autopsy. And I declined that. I thought, I don't want to have the body mangled that way. You know, I just want to bury the parrot and live with this death. So that was all right for that moment, but then I began to realize I have to know why that bird died. It shouldn't have died. You know, it's too young. And not only that, but I am a writer, and in the last few years I've been spending a lot more time writing books and articles, and so I haven't been giving the bird the attention that I used to give her. She's been relating through the air and through being fed well all the time. I'm always giving Moxie little bits of fruit and nuts and things to eat, just to keep her, because she always wants to eat when you're eating, so you give her a little bit, and it's company, like something we do together. So she seemed fine, but then this stopping eating. So the vet did the autopsy, and there was a reason why she died. She had a tumor in her stomach, in her gizzard, and she said that this little tumor was about 1 centimeter square. It had gone through the stomach wall and perforated the wall of the stomach to allow fluid contents from the stomach into the intestinal area and cause peritonitis. That's an infection, and then, you know, that's it. I mean, you can't do anything. And she said, even if we'd known about this weeks or months before while it was starting, we couldn't have done anything about it. So I suppose that should have taken my guilt away, but then there's the question, well, would an unhappy or neglected bird, emotionally, like with handling and everything, would that possibly cause unhappiness that might undermine the immune system and maybe lead to a cancer? So that's a question I have to kind of live with, but I'm adjusting to the fact that in 30 years, you know, a lot changes and your life changes, and sometimes you don't have as much energy anymore to look after the bird with as much time that you used to. So I'm beginning to accept this, but the most useful thing was to go on YouTube, and you can see there are some people on YouTube who really wanted to help people who lost a bird because of the experience they had. Unlike any other kind of death. And one of them said, you know, everybody who loses a bird feels guilty because they know that bird's supposed to be out in the wild. It's not supposed to be in a cage. And so you've got to really look after them to make sure that they can prosper for a long time, for their lifespan in your care. And if they don't, then you feel you've failed them, and the guilt is there. So that's why I'm making this little YouTube, is that I want to say how wise these women were that made the other 2 YouTubes, and maybe they're more than 2, and just to help anybody who gets into this stunning devastation that you don't expect it. You don't know how much you've been unconsciously relating to that bird all the time. It's just so much part of your life. It's like breathing the air. But when that bird dies, then you realize you're not breathing that air anymore. It's different air now. So this is just for anybody else that has to go through this. And I suppose that dogs and cats, it's similar. It's not the same because I've lost several dogs and cats during my rather long life now, and this is different. So thank you for listening, and if you are suffering the same thing that I'm going through now, I hope it will be helpful to you.